Fantastic. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the February edition of DUG4GOV's monthly meetup. We're very excited to have you here. We are going to be hosting some quite phenomenal content once again this month. For those that I've not met or haven't seen, my name is Liz Hallen. I'm the VP here at Dynamics User Group, and to help kick things off and get things warmed up a little bit, I just had a few things that I wanted to mention about DUG in case you have not heard DUG. DUG is short for Dynamics User Group. We are the organization behind our meetup here today. And DUG is an organization that brings everybody in the Microsoft Dynamics or Power Platform community together for free education and learning. Your membership is free, and in addition to what you're experiencing today, just know that our community, while it may have been around for a long time, we've been around since 1995, but really in the last 3 years when we've had full-time staff, have you really seen our programs grow? And those different programs have allowed us to grow into 39,000 members so far. And again, our membership is free, it's individual, so it's very much focused on you. In addition to the meetups, here are some of the other programs that we offer. We're probably most famous for our DynamicsCon events. We host both a virtual and a live event of those, and I've got a couple slides with more details on those coming up in just a second here. But in addition to that, we do have online discussion forums, which you're all welcome to use. If you've got quick questions about the product and you want some, we've got some wonderful moderators that can help you with those topics and questions. In addition to that, our YouTube channel is the host of almost 500 videos that wonderful community members have contributed, mostly from our DynamicsCon virtual events, where you can go back and watch those pre-recorded sessions and really gain some wonderful knowledge from our community. And then our Team Up program, definitely for our partners in ISVs, but if you're an end user customer, this is another great way for you to just learn maybe about some more ISV solutions if you're looking to extend your platform a little bit. So those are our products, and all of that can be found at dynamicsusergroup.com. Our next event, however, kind of larger conference, is DynamicsCon Virtual, which is happening 15th and 16th of March. If you've not participated in one of our virtual DynamicsCon events, just know that the content that you will see and do see on the final agenda is totally curated by the community. So we open up and do a call for sessions, call for submissions and speakers, and then the community is allowed to vote on those sessions. And those that are highest voted are the ones that you'll see on our final agenda. We do also very much focus on new and premiering content and new speakers, and because we love to see new faces and help those in our community elevate their careers. This year is a very special virtual event for us because we've partnered with Microsoft, and the second day of DynamicsCon Virtual will be our Microsoft Customer Success Day. This event is being produced completely by Microsoft employees, so you'll see some really great big names from Microsoft doing all the content, doing the presentations. The majority of the content is out there on the website at dynamicscon.com if you want to take a peek. Again, this virtual event is free, so please join us. We're expecting about 7,000 registrants for this event. And as long as we are talking about that, I just had a quick question because we were talking before we started if Mary and the team from Microsoft, Mary and Chris and Doug were wondering if any of our DUG4GOV attendees were going to plan on checking out the virtual event. So I've put the poll up. Can you guys see the poll? Do I have to stop sharing my screen?
We can see the poll.
Great.
Liz, I'm getting messages that people are waiting in the lobby. So Chris, Doug, can you guys check the lobby and let people in? Getting a lot of messages that that's stopping people from attending.
That's weird.
I'm not seeing it.
Oh yeah. I'm going to send them a link. It looks like they're in the wrong one.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
All right. Well, while those folks are coming in, I'll just do a can you guys see the poll results now? I see about 56% of you that are on the call. 50 now are planning on attending. Some of you are maybes. For those that aren't able to attend or you're maybe thinking about coming, just know that we do pre-record all of our sessions and they will be available on our YouTube channel after the fact. All right.
Hey, Mary, we may want to do a reset.
yep, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
So,
I posted the link to the other to this meeting in the other chat
okay, let's see if more.
because there were 50
join.
people, 60 people in that one. So it must have been a
Oh. I wonder how that happened.
I'm not sure. That's too bad. So, Chris, are you monitoring that meeting?
Yeah. I posted the
Teddy,
link there.
Teddy, I see you have your hand up. Can you put your comment in the chat?
Yeah, he just said that many people are in the other meeting and we're starting to direct them over here. So,
Okay, so
Excellent.
maybe we should wait a minute or two and kind of reset. I hate to do that, but Liz will have to make you do super short. And I'll be really quick and then we'll get to the stars of the show.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Okay, yeah, the attendee count's going way up now.
There we go.
Apologies, everyone. We
Hey,
had some
look at
kind of confusion
that.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened, but we're glad that all of you are joining us over in the where all the speakers are and the presenters are, which is the where you all wanted to be today. So for those that are just joining us, I am Liz Hallen. I'm with the Dynamics user group, and we were just talking a little bit about DUG and who we are and what we do. I want to make sure that we give our wonderful presenters, Jeremy and David, enough time today. So I'm not going to go through everything because we cover this in all of the DUG4GOV meetings. So I'm going to keep going if that's okay with you, Mary. And if those of you who really want to know more about it, I'm more than happy to have an offline chat. So I'm going to keep going. We were just talking about the programs and events that DUG hosts. The meetups are one of them. The slide you just saw previous to this was our DynamicsCon virtual event coming up in March 15th and 16th. We do also have a live event that we're going to be hosting in Scottsdale, Arizona on May 22nd through the 25th. So if you are feeling like a little bit of warmer weather, if you're in a cold environment like I am, with my warm sweater on today, please join us. I've got a coupon code here for $50 off of your registration. So really excited. All the content there is selected by our committees, and we'll have tracks for Dynamics GP, Business Central, Dynamics Finance and Operations, Customer Engagement, as well as Power Platform. And now I will turn it over to Mary, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming DUG4GOV events.
Thanks, Liz. Hi,
Yes.
everyone. Super apologize for the mix-up. Glad you're on now. So DUG4GOV is our Dynamics and Power Platform user group for government professionals. So we're excited for you all to be here today. We have a virtual meetup on the fourth Tuesday of every month from 11 to 12. So we're on the February meetup, virtual meetup. Next month, mark your calendar for March 28th, and that's the city of Columbus. And they're going to talk about kind of how they've been innovating with Dynamics 365 and Power Platform for years. So they've been on the platform for, I think, over 5 years. They have finance and operations, customer experience, and now they're really expanding their capabilities with Power Platform and specifically Power Pages. So they have some really, really great use cases to share. And then in April, we're going to kind of do a deep dive in the digital contact center platform. So we're excited for that. And then Liz, if you can go real quick to the next slide. We are going to host our first local in-person meetup. So we're excited about that. It's going to be April 25th in Austin, Texas at the Microsoft office. It's going to be from 9 to 11. So you'll start, all the Texas folks are going to start hearing more information about that. But it's going to be kind of a networking session. We're going to do a deep dive in a couple of the different capabilities. And then while we're there, from 11 to 12, we'll do the virtual national meetup as well. So really excited about doing this. If people who aren't in the Austin area have an interest in participating in a local meetup, let me know. I'll put my contact information in the chat, or just tell us in the chat if you have any interest in where you're located. And then your Microsoft Business Application Specialist can reach out to you and see if they can put together a local meetup. So super excited about that, but most excited for the stars of the show today. So we have Jeremy Lyon from the city of Oregon. He's the interim. I don't know, are you CIO or CTO? I think I put you both titles on the invite.
Interim Chief Technology Officer for the state of Oregon.
Okay, you heard it from the horse's mouth. And David Terry, who's the Customer Success Manager. And so with that, they're going to talk all things Power Platform adoption and governance, which is a super hot topic, I know, for the customers I talk to. So Dave and Jeremy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Ready to go. Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. I recognize a bunch of you here on in the meeting this morning. So great to have you aboard. So again, my name is David Terry. I'm a customer success manager for business applications, part of our state and local government business unit at Microsoft, based up in the Pacific Northwest here in Kirkland. We are lucky to have Jeremy Lyon with us today. Jeremy, again, interim CTO for state of Oregon. And Jeremy, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You happen to be in the first month or two of a new administration there in Oregon. Also, just recently kicked off your legislative session for the year, and I know you're supporting that. So again, we're super lucky to have you for this little bit of time, and thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, let's go ahead and dig in. Gosh, time flies when you're having fun. I just realized this morning and kind of checking calendars and when we started, it was about a year ago that I think I was first introduced to you folks in Oregon, and you know, some of your concerns around governance and the challenges you were having at the time, and the things that you wanted to kind of get in place from a strategy standpoint. I know a lot of our audience today come from IT departments, and where you find yourself in Oregon. I think they're going to share some of those same kind of pressing concerns and around Power Platform. And I wonder if you would just set the stage here for us for a moment by kind of telling us where you started with all this and what your kind of circumstances and priorities were if we go back a year ago.
Sure, absolutely. So prior to 2020, we had a couple agencies that were just starting to poke around the Power Platform. So we didn't have a lot of adoption yet. At the beginning of 2020, obviously, our world completely changed, and we were tasked with bringing 44,000 of our state employees to a work from home environment, and that environment is Microsoft 365. So, but during that same time period, we had significant drivers to get new innovative applications out to the people of Oregon. We were driven by response to the pandemic. One of our applications was a scheduling system for vaccination. And also, just a year later, we had devastating wildfires in the state of Oregon. And behind me, that's my backyard, and that's on a good day. The picture in the forefront there was roughly noon on September 9th of 2021. We woke up and our entire life changed within the state. Thousands of houses burned to the ground. Upwards of 1 million acres lost. It was a catastrophic week. So these drivers really had a lot to do with the interest in getting technology out to our constituents. Primarily the pandemic, but the wildfire situation also drove interest in adoption. During that process, we realized that this technology is not simply iterative. It's not simply an additional tool in the Microsoft tool set. If you look at the Power family of products, it really can be transformational. And we recognize this, and we wanted to get out ahead of this. We wanted to get to our business leaders and our agencies and get them up to speed to really appreciate and understand if they chose to go down this path of Power Platform full adoption, that it meant change to their organizations. And we, at the same time, we also really wanted to get our IT staff up to speed as well. Most of you, or if you're older like myself, you understand what Microsoft Access 97 is. It was a great business tool, but it really did cause IT a lot of headaches. But this new Power Platform comes with the ability to support the interest of IT and the organization while giving these tools to the maker community and the business technologists outside of IT. So we had multiple conversations initially, talking with leadership, talking with IT, and saying, you're still going to get the controls you need. This is not shadow IT as we formerly knew it. This is an opportunity to work directly with IT and give IT, the tools they need to do their job, such as, the control over who has access to the data, what systems are being integrated, the ability to manage app lifecycle and ownership. So the key message here is we recognize the transformational power of potential with the Power family, and we knew that we needed a governance strategy right off the bat.
So funny, you mentioned Microsoft Access there along the way, and just notably, I think the first question I see in the chat this morning is about Microsoft Access. So a comment on the chat and questions real quickly. We will be happy to take questions time permitting this morning, and since we kind of got going with a hiccup at the start there, a little bit late, we may push most of them to the end, but I certainly encourage folks to put questions in the chat, and we'll try to address them as they come up. So Jeremy, again, so if we go back a year and where we started when I first engaged with you, in our first meeting, I think I proposed a standard success planning workshop. You looked at that, and if memory serves, it was not quite hitting the mark, and you said basically try again. So we went back to the drawing board, and we brought in something called the adoption maturity model. It's a concept and pretty well documented now. It's fully publicly documented. It was developed by Microsoft's Power CAT team, our Power Customer Advisory team, and as a framework for adopting and establishing governance around Power Platform. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit and share your impressions of that adoption maturity model with the folks here.
Sure. Yeah. The original offering, while I imagine it's extremely valuable for certain types of organizations, we didn't quite fit. My organization is tasked with providing the underpinnings and support for roughly 80 agencies, boards, and commissions. So we're not necessarily the app creators, but we're the team that supports the underlying tenant estate for the state of Oregon, our 8 tenants. So that meant that there were many stakeholders, not just an individual organization. So what the maturity model allowed us to do is pick from this buffet of capabilities and different degrees of maturity. And so I could literally customize to the state of Oregon, emphasize and perhaps suggest higher levels of maturity in certain areas that we felt were important right off the bat. Other areas where maybe a level 200 was appropriate, at least for an initial start. So it really did give us a full set of digestible components for a roadmap to long-term maturity. It also gave us the milestones. We knew what success looked like based on the rationale provided in the model. So we're about a little over a year into this, and we definitely plan on going back to revisit the comprehensive model to kind of do a health check and compare against our progress. So hopefully over time, we'll integrate more of the components in the greater model and increase maturity to an appropriate level for the state of Oregon.
So let's talk about how you're deploying your strategy. You have a document, and I think time permitting, you're going to share that today. You're at version 1.0. How would you characterize your current state and where you're going from here in terms of operationalizing the strategy?
Sure. So right off the bat, we knew that we needed to implement security baselines. So we reached out to Microsoft and got access to an amazing resource. Name is John Landgrave, and he has a series of 6 videos, extremely concise, nutrition-dense information about how to govern the environment. I was literally, taking notes on every word. It's that good of content. So thank you, John. So yeah, initially, make sure that our security house is in order. After that, it's outreach and education. We need to work with our own IT staff. We need to work with individual agencies when they express interest in the Power Platform. We just don't simply turn on license entitlements. We want to have a conversation with leadership within the agencies prior to kind of lighting up their environments. So they have an understanding of essentially what they're turning on. Also during this time, we're kind of doing a sea trial on our processes for intake and service fulfillment. So as these requests start to trickle in, we're seeing if our intake processes work, our ticketing systems work, making sure that those assumptions that we had actually pan out. Also during this time, we have an ongoing conversation and training with Microsoft Unified Support. Critical part of our journey is the close air support we get with Microsoft and the different emerging technologies during the same time frame. Power Pages comes out. Okay, what's that mean to our environment? Well, right there we have our Microsoft resources to get us up to speed on these technologies that are being released. Not only that, they give us the roadmap. They're giving us peeks at what is coming at us in the future, and it's really exciting. If you're familiar with OpenAI and ChatGPT, you're going to start seeing some of this filter into the product stack, and it's pretty amazing. So I talked about onboarding, process refinement. During this process, our draft strategy our 1.0 document, not type edited, not anything. We kicked it out to a couple of very well-known analysts or analyst corporations. I'm sure you've heard of their names. I'm not going to mention them here, but both validated our approach. And one even mentioned that the research that and the work that David Terry and State of Oregon was doing was actually ahead of what they were doing. So kind of made us feel good. We were a bit validated that we were heading down the right path.
Yeah, it's gratifying to hear it, Jeremy, definitely. And I will say this collaborative process is certainly there's learnings on all sides, and we're incorporating a lot of what we've learned in this process back into our success planning workshops. So fantastic there. So I think we planned these questions pretty well today because this question just came up in the chat, actually. And, you know, in terms of balancing the needs of you're supporting departments of very different sizes and needs and varying kind of capabilities. In terms of Microsoft 365, Oregon has a mix of department-aligned tenants, and then you've also got some central IT managed tenants for multiple departments, like a big shared tenant, if you will. So you've got both scenarios going. I know we have lots of our customers elsewhere around the U.S. in one camp or another on that, and then some of them actually have that blend like you do. Could you talk a little bit about how this strategy plays through that kind of scenario?
Sure. So just to kind of give you an idea of our tenant estate and what that looks like, we currently have 8 tenants, and this number is actually down from 23 in early 2019. So it was the most dense we could get our tenant estate without severe disruption to our businesses. So at some point in the future, that number may decrease as tools and integration technologies mature. But right now we're sitting at 8. So the 7 that we call them assigned tenants. So we'll have a one agency for a tenant. And these are typically the agencies that were at a level of maturity prior to the state's effort to consolidate and assume global administrator control. And then we have what we refer to as the Oregon tenant. That tenant has roughly 55 agencies, boards, and commissions. So from a power platform perspective, it presents a challenge. We have a distributed support approach where agencies provide, well, at its most basic, let's say a user's in a default environment and they're doing personal productivity. A lot of that is going to be choose your own adventure. Go out, Google, learn more about what you can do with that small subset of tools. We will provide some written support, perhaps through an information hub on SharePoint. But for the most part, it's going to be up to the individuals to kind of figure out how to use those tools. If they have a mature IT shop, maybe their agency's IT can provide additional support there. We also have the enterprise support. So if an agency really is in a bind, they can notify our enterprise information services. And we have, it's nascent, but we do have a support capability there. If we can't support it, then it moves on to perhaps our vendor partner, Microsoft, to help solve these issues. From a Power Platform governance perspective, for these assigned tenant, let's take our retirement system, for example, PERS. They have an assigned tenant. And so governance is fairly straightforward there. We get them up to speed. We talk with their leadership. We talk with their IT staff. Training happens. And we can actually delegate service level administration to the agencies. We kind of deputize them. We retain global administrator, but we'll give them service administrator in their power environments, and we'll monitor. For the Oregon tenant, it's a bit more difficult. obviously a tenant is a security boundary. And in documentation, when you hear the word organization, it typically matches one-to-one to a tenant. But, you know, in a complex organization where we have multiple agencies, each with different regulatory regimes and security requirements, we need to be really careful about role-based access control and what capabilities we make to agencies as to keep their, you know, business separated. So the approach that we're looking at in the Oregon tenant to give our agencies a degree of autonomy over their Power Platform resources is called a pillar of excellence. It's essentially, if you're familiar with the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, it's essentially a copy of that, but it's scoped down to a particular security group. So you give a subset of control to the agency, and you can have multiple of these in a single tenant. So we've been working with Mose Richardson and a few others to kind of flesh out this concept of multiple COEs, these pillars of excellence within a single tenant.
So timely, we just have something posted in the chat, and I'm going to quick shout out to Doug Bell. Doug is a technical specialist in our state and local government business unit, and in his kind of Power Platform capacity, Doug is an expert on the platform, needless to say, but also has gone really deep on admin and governance, and really has pioneered. So, Jeremy, you mentioned Mose Richardson. Mose is part of Microsoft Unified, cloud solution architect in Unified. And so on that part of the business, Mose has been breaking ground and kind of together and collaboratively with Doug Bell on our technical specialist team, who's kind of done the same. Doug provided a link back to a session that we did in January. Doug does a really good deep dive on that exact concept that you mentioned there, Jeremy. You referenced his pillars of excellence, and I think Doug has kind of coined the phrase pockets of excellence. And it really has to do with multiple COEs in one tenant, and a lot of the work that you need to do around care and feeding for that scenario. So thanks for posting that in there, Doug. And for folks interested, that link to the recording is in there. Moving on, so to the next question. And I know this isn't all about kind of doing education on the adoption maturity model and all of its pillars, but I will just say, I'm just going to kind of tick them off for folks real quickly here, so you know what it comprises, and then we will be providing links to the documentation on it so that you all have it. But so there's a section on strategy and vision, establishing your strategy and vision for the platform, a section on business value, one on change management, a section on admin and governance, and then there's a couple of pillars that are easily overlooked if not for being kind of reflected in that maturity model, and that's support. How are you going to support the platform, and how are you going to nurture skill sets in the platform? Jeremy, can you walk us through the skilling and nurture part of your strategy and share a little bit about what that looks like, how it's taking shape, and what you're prioritizing there?
Oh, absolutely. So the state of Oregon has a cloud strategy, which we call Cloud Forward. And one of the main pillars of our Cloud Forward strategy is our people. So we are very committed to bringing our folks along for the transformation journey in a lot of these technologies, and that involves training. So one of the key tools in our tool chest is Microsoft's Enterprise Skill Initiative. I think I got that right. It's essentially a portal to multiple training opportunities for state of Oregon employees. Everything from access to the Microsoft Learn materials, those materials that you can go in and just do 5-10 minutes at a time. Over a period of time, you can complete an entire training track. We also have available to us instructor-led training. So if we have technical staff or makers that need to do a deeper dive, they can take focus classes. There are also training days available. And what's really impressive is the certification process. So it's not just haphazard training. It's an approach to and a path. So the Enterprise Skills Initiative, our representative, if we have different groups and different agencies that are seeking a path to learn a particular technology or attain a certification, they'll come in and essentially plan a roadmap for staff to achieve those certifications. So that's really useful to us. And once again, we lean heavily on Microsoft for training and learning. So we have multiple sessions per week on a variety of different topics, keeping us abreast of the latest developments in Microsoft 365, Azure, the Power family of applications, just across the board.
And Jeremy, maybe to page back, because I think we've got a few minutes here, and I think we've got ample time. There is a question in the chat about the government community cloud. The question is, are all of Oregon's tenants in Gov Cloud, or do you have a mix of commercial and Gov? If you could just cycle back to that one for a moment.
So our 8 Microsoft 365 tenants are in the GCC. So they're technically in Gov Cloud. They're not GCC High or GCC, military grade. They're that base level of government community cloud.
Thanks. And yeah, I won't get into the nitty gritty on that. If there's follow-up questions on that, we'll be happy to take them. Okay. I was tempted to get into the weeds, but I'm not going to. All right. So Jeremy, what do you recommend for your peers out there that are kind of at the front end of the journey and starting out with Power Platform? What are some of the do's and don'ts and things you would suggest that they prioritize?
I think starting off, a clear one-pager for your leadership types. They need to understand what Power Platform is and what it potentially means to their organization. So a single pager for leadership is critical. I think it's really important to understand what your future support model is going to look like. In a fairly large organization like the state of Oregon, it's tiered and distributed. So depending on the product and the technologies, we have different service levels. So it's really important to kind of think through that, what your future support model is going to look like, because within EIS, we still are at the very beginning of building out our bench depth in these tools. So it really does, it takes the entire state from makers all the way through enterprise information services to support these environments. Talk with your finance folks, engage your finance folks, get them up to speed, because there's a lot of different ways to license Microsoft 3 or the Power Platform products. I believe that the current license guide is like 36 pages long. But there's consumption, there's per app, there's per user. And it's really important that you understand licensing so you can apply the correct licensing and don't and potentially don't overpay or create duplicate license scenarios where you can receive efficiency from understanding how your products are licensed. Again, lean on Microsoft. If you have a question or if you're struggling with something, kick it upstream to your CSAs, your unified group, and they can definitely get the people to answer your questions. And I guess the last thing is the Center of Excellence starter kit. If you're any size, it's really probably in your best interest to take a really close look at the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and see if this is appropriate for your organization. There's a lot of stuff in there. It streamlines your intake. It gives visibility and management dashboards for your app estate. It helps you manage life cycle because, as you know, some of the Power Apps, if they're licensed to a person and that person disappears and someone else in the organization is dependent, it helps you manage that cohesiveness and sustainability of the service across individual users. There's a lot there. So take a look at that COE Starter Kit.
So let me just kind of together with that, and good segue, I think, given that you're talking about what's available to folks out there in the way of resources. This slide, by the way, all the slides will be made available to you after the fact of the meeting today. And we wanted to have some specific takeaways for you and resource links in this deck. So the links are all live. Want to point out a couple things. So if you have questions, if you want to see what the adoption maturity model looks like, there are links to it in the documentation provided here. Also, blog articles. So that PowerCat team that developed the adoption maturity model, which happens, by the way, it probably sounds familiar. It's based on the capability maturity model framework. So that's how it kind of manifests. And so that article there in the under the first one under the blog articles provided in these resources does talk about what it's meant to do and kind of where it started and how it was developed. And then Jeremy mentioned the John Landgrave videos. So those have been brought in to Microsoft now and kind of managed as a Microsoft kind of public facing on Microsoft.com public facing property. And that video, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Power Platform Digital Guide, that's the link where you will find those videos. So just wanted to point that out. The other couple of things I really highly recommend, and Jeremy has touched on them, you have in your comments, and thank you for that. If you have a Microsoft Unified Agreement, I highly recommend that you engage your CSAM, Customer Success Account Manager, that's what that stands for, to get any of a number of different engagements on Power Platform, ranging from app in a day. And I see in the chat, there's been a question about some examples of apps, but that's a way that we engage to help our customers quickly put together a prototype app to see how it would land in Power Platform. And in the course of doing that, we also tend to give examples. And be happy if we've got a little bit of time at the end, I'll speak to some other example apps that some of our customers are doing out there. But specifically within Unified, there is an Activate 3-day, I believe it's still a 3-day engagement on Power Platform governance with COE and Center of Excellence. And we do have CSA engineers who are spun up on the Pocket of Excellence model. So how to do that PoE approach where you've got multiple COEs going into one tenant. So during the scoping of the engagement, if you want to land that engagement and take that up, just make it clear that you have that multi-COE requirement, and that'll be incorporated in the way that workshop is delivered. And then success planning workshop. So technically, our engagement together, Jeremy, was a success planning workshop, albeit we did it over many, many, many weeks, right? And I think we did one session per week for, it must have been about 10 weeks. And since that time, we've kind of on the customer success team, we've taken that adoption maturity model, and we've driven that whole framework back through the way we do an SPW. So you can see it's a little bit small on the display here, but we have kind of a 2-step, and normally you do this in 2 separate days. One whiteboard collaboration to establish your priorities around the various capability levels within the 6 pillars of the adoption maturity model. and then we come back and we step through and develop a RACI model. And Jeremy, credit to you, by the way, for really making that requirement kind of front and center with us. And just so the audience knows here, RACI model stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And it's a kind of a standard practice out there. And Jeremy wanted to take that and apply this to the whole exercise in terms of who was going to be responsible and accountable for the various things coming out of this strategy. I'm going to pause there because I've said a lot there, Jeremy, but just in case you want to comment on that.
Yeah, that given the distribution of support, that was critical to the overall strategy. We needed to understand who was responsible for what, partially because we also leverage external level 1 through 3 support. So this document also helps form the basis for a statement of work and contract language to help support these environments as we do staff aug. So yeah, the RACI was definitely an important part of it.
All right, so last, and this is actually probably the main course in many ways, the actual strategy document that you developed, Jeremy. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to give you control. And I think you were going to kind of walk us through your document a little bit. And while you do that, I'll look to the chat to see what other questions we can get to.
Sure. Let's see. I am the presenter. Okay, so do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. There we go. Okay, can you see my screen?
I'm seeing it.
All right. So this is version 1.1.1. Don't ask about the numbering convention. It was a change over a change over a change. So I went with it. But this strategy, get past here, is essentially 2 parts. The first part speaks to the transformational nature of a tool or a product family like this. It tells the reader that, you know, these are transformational. These are things that you really need to plan deliberately. Your customers are going to be wanting functionality. There's some supporting statistics from Gartner. Talk quickly about the 5 major components of the family. A little bit about our support strategy. How we support different tiers of the product family. Some key concepts, and I might, you know, on 1.2.3. whatever, I might kind of reorder some of these to make them read easier. This is still very much a living document, work in progress. So bear with me here. So we have the key concepts and also considerations. This is important for your business folks. Because if not done correctly, there's potentially some corners you can get yourself into that could be painful to get out of. So I really wanted to speak to not only the possibilities, but also the considerations and the things you need to be cognizant of as you adopt these tools. Went into licensing. Just a quick reference to different sources for how to understand licensing of the different products. Talk about Center of Excellence Starter Kit as it applies to the state of Oregon. So we have our big Oregon tenant, and we have other assigned tenants, each with their Center of Excellence. And some of the rationale or not rationale, but, what do I need to get started? One of the criticisms of this document, and I totally understand and I totally appreciate it, when we went to our analyst partners and asked them to review, was that the document kind of struggles for an audience. It has a message for leadership. It has a message for technical staff. It has a message for the maker. So that's why one of my recommendations is to kind of peel out the leadership portion of it. And in the future, I'm probably looking at 3 different documents here. One that's very much focused on the maker community, one that is focused on leadership, and then one is focused on the underpinning support staff. But that kind of what is Power Platform is the first part of the document. And the second part of the document, we start digging into the core governance competencies that we want to achieve with a strategy. And this is where we pulled out specific objectives in the maturity model and decided on a maturity level that was a good fit for the state of Oregon. And I think, gee whiz, we went over this like 3 or 4 times. This was kind of an iterative process to kind of land on a set of objectives and target maturity. And then with this, this part is very much focused on your practitioner, your operator, the staff that are going to be running the service for the makers. So a bunch of different links to different resources to learn up. We talk about, kind of the continuum here, from office automation in the default all the way through pro code and highly integrated Power Platform applications with Dataverse hooks, Azure hooks, the whole bit. And yep, so the rest of this document is essentially our objectives that we chose and maturity levels that we aspire to attain. So let me show you one of the RACI charts. So with each of these 4 areas, we have a RACI chart for the different stakeholders. So we have, our enterprise information services, our governance. So if we're making major changes to our tenant environment, we don't do that in a technical vacuum. We run this through a governance process. We have operations and management of the 365 stack. We have our agency IT partners. And the agency business partners. And last but absolutely not least is our vendor community. So the CSAMs and the CSMs and the architects and the engineers that help us light up these services. So promise not to drag you through the entire document here, but a couple different charts on licensing and capabilities, because there's 3 different flavors. You've got your what's available in the default, what's available in your teams, because you get Power Automate and a bunch of different features in your teams environment, but it's a subset of a full standalone environment. So that's what this chart here attempts to communicate, is the different capabilities and the different areas that you may interact with Power Platform tools.
So Jeremy, a couple of things. I see some questions coming up in the chat, and I know we're also running, we're about 4 minutes from the top of the hour. So try to get to them quickly if we can. And some of them kind of relate to what you've passed through here. First, there's a question, will this document be shared later? And I think what we did is agree that contact Mary Brummer, and the document is available to be shared through Mary. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. So the answer to that is yes. And then there's some questions around, I think one you could probably answer fairly quickly. What did you use as your baseline to establish the prioritization as well as the target levels?
The baseline is essentially the conversations we had. Is we just needed a starting point, and a lot of it was intuition, gut feel, kind of for what our current support, where our current support capabilities were. So a lot of it is based off assumption, and that's why we're gonna, as soon as we get to open for business for general availability, we're gonna completely revisit that same process and start basing this off of metrics and data. But to be honest, you know, the first attempt is a swag. It could be wrong in some areas. It probably is.
And then thank you for that. And then there's questions around citizen developers, and then there was another question around custom dev or code first types, and how do you get them to uptake the Power Platform? Jeremy, I know there's some reflection of those ideas and concepts and the different roles, and some of that is in your document. I don't know to what extent you feel like you fully cracked the code on those things, but maybe if you want to comment, and then I'll just say for folks, I will include in the resources slide, there's some good documentation, new documentation on Fusion development and bringing the business makers together with code first folks. So Jeremy, back in your court.
All right, so we're already seeing a blend. Our first major project in Power Platform as a state had to do with pandemic support, and it was a comprehensive application, and we got dumped into the deep end of the pool on day one. This particular application, full Dataverse, it uses external APIs, ties in with Azure and Synapse and the whole bit. So we're already there from a practical standpoint, but we're, you know, all of our folks are very much at the beginning of this learning journey, and so yeah, no one's an expert. We all very much rely on each other, and bits and pieces of experience that we're gaining running these applications.
I think we're just about at time, and want to respect everyone's time here. Jeremy, I just want to thank you again for taking time to spend with us today on DUG4GOV. Your peers out there, those of us at Microsoft, thank you from the bottom of our heart. Really enjoy being on the journey with you, and helping you meet your citizens, constituents, and customer needs. So thank you again today for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeremy, thank you so much. And David, great work with the state of Oregon. So thanks, everybody, and we will talk next month. Bye.
Thank you.